Good morning, fifth graders. Today we will be reading chapter 24, the last chapter of Pillage by Obert Sky.
It's the village.
Dad. Sorry, guys. My dad is pretty excited about the last chapter. Last in chapter 23, remember they were able to defeat all of the dragons, and they even tricked the last dragon into eating Milo instead of one of them. Excerpt from the section 13 of the Grim Knot as recorded by Beck Phillips. Aaron married a woman named Laurel. She died giving birth to their only child, a boy named Beck. Aaron went temporarily mad with grief. His sister, Francine, took Beck away, with the promise of never returning. Fortunately, for everyone everywhere, some promises are made to be broken. Chapter 24, Having Everything Now. There was so much food. Miley felt awful about me never believing that she could have been cruel. Also, so awful, she was now trying to kill me with biscuits and gravy. My stomach complained as I stood in the kitchen eating a plate full of buttery cakes and warm roast, leaning against the counter. Thomas and Wayne were in the kitchen also. Miley kept looking up from what she was doing and winking at me with her one straight eye. "Is it okay?" she asked for the third time. "Sublime," I said, using another one of my newly learned words. "He might need more juice," Thomas said, reaching for the half-full glass in front of me. "I'll get him some," Wayne insisted. "Seriously," I smiled. "I'm fine." All three smiled back. King's Plot and Colorado were far from put back together. There were still entire buildings that needed to be rebuilt or repaired, and large holes remained everywhere. At Colorado, we were holding most of our classes in portables that the school had brought in and set up in the parking lot. Most of the damage in King's Plot had been in the center of town, and even though 87 people were injured, nobody had been killed. A woman who had been picked up and dropped off in the conservatory was planning to write a book about her experiences. It had taken a lot of explaining to get the cops to understand what had happened. If they had not seen for themselves the dragons tearing apart the town, they would have never believed us. Videos of the dragons had been showing up on TV and the internet. In fact, our small sleepy town had been illuminated with thousands and thousands of curious tourists. A blowtorch had been necessary to get Kate and Scott out of the cage. Kate had seen Milo with a key, but Milo was no longer around. Aaron speculated it was the key Taft had sent with his son, Morgan, to his wife, Esmeralda, in Europe. Milo must have followed Morgan and discovered the truth about where the Pillage family had gone. Aaron also wondered if Milo had even been following me, trying to influence Francine. I figured he had taken the form of the two passengers who had ridden in the train to town with me. He had been a masterful magician who could work trick candles and impersonations, but he couldn't boss around the foliage or hatch the dragon eggs like a Pillage. For that, he had needed Aaron or me. Luckily, for all of us, Milo was finally gone. Aaron was slowly adjusting to being slightly normal. So much of the insanity that Thomas and Miley and Wayne had seen in him the last few years had actually been Milo's doing. We figured Milo had taken our shapes and had multiple conversations with each of us at different points in time, trying to get us to do what he wanted. Aaron decided to sell off some of our land to cover the costs of helping to repair King's Plot. With any luck, we would be able to keep the manor. I didn't really care. Even if my father had to sell the manor, at least we would be together. I missed Francine, but I knew she would always be with me. It was interesting how much sense her journal now made with the new knowledge I had a family we both came from. Aaron was trying hard to adjust to life below the 7th floor. He still slept in the dome, but was making his way down more often. He was also trying to figure out how to be a dad. It was sort of nice that we both had to figure things out together. Scott came through the kitchen door. "Look what I found outside," he said. Kate walked in behind me. She waved at everyone and stepped up next to me. Things are looking nice around here, she said, commenting on all the cleanup and removal that was happening. It almost looks the way it was. Almost, Miley smiled, but we didn't have such pretty visitors before. Scott was about to say thank you, but Scott was about to say thank you, but stopped. Oh, you mean the girl. It was the first joke I had ever seen him attempt. It wasn't too bad considering how awful adults' sense of humor can be. Wyatt gave me this, Kate said, handing me a note. He tried to find you at school. I read the note aloud. Tomorrow, after school, in the park. Everything okay? Kate asked. Yeah, we're playing baseball tomorrow, I answered. You in? Of course, Kate smiled, turning to make sure I would see it. You'll need some snacks, Miley said anxiously. I'd better get started. Maybe some cookies or pretzels? Before I could protest, a new shadow darkened the door. Aaron. He looked more nervous than when he had been fighting dragons. He cleared his throat. I just thought I'd come down to see what's going on, he said awkwardly. It was obvious he had tried to comb his hair that morning. He was also wearing semi-normal clothes and had trimmed his beard. We all looked at each other, still not completely sure how to handle him just popping in. We were about to make some cookies, I said happily. You're welcome to help. Miley's recipe is easy. He looked at everyone's faces and then shook his head in disbelief. Aaron and Beck Phillips, making cookies, he laughed. Beck Pillage, I corrected. My dad liked that. Kate squeezed my hand, then she opened the cupboard looking for sugar as I reached for the mixing bowls. The end. I will start a new book tomorrow. See you then.